FAIRtax is coming, don't stand in the way. FAIRtax is coming across the USA. FAIRtax is coming to clean up this mess. We got to get rid of the IRS. Hey, hey! Hey, hey!
Hello and welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you once again that the IRS is a criminal enterprise that needs to be put out of business and needs to be thrown on the scrap heap of history with a stake through its heart so it'll never grow up again. And let me tell you, do not be fooled. The fair tax is the only way to do that, because tinkering around with the current income tax, which is what they're talking about now, won't get the job done. Replacing the entire income tax system with the fair tax is the only way to get rid of the IRS, and we're going to do all we can to make that happen.
And Bob's absolutely right. All the other plans that have been talked about, by the way, Paul Ryan's plan is still just a plan. He hasn't actually submitted legislation to Congress, at least not as the time of this recording. But those plans that they're talking about, where they reduce the number of tax brackets and they lower the rates and they change these deductions and eliminate this and so forth, is still an income tax. And as long as you have an income tax, you need an agency to collect it, because people don't like to give up their income. I mean, it's just human nature. We don't like to give up what we earned. We earned it. So you need an agency to force us to give it up, okay? Whereas with the fair tax, you go to the store, you buy something, it's included in the price of the thing. We've all experienced that. 45 of the 50 states have a sales tax. It's no big deal. The fair tax will be much simpler and much fairer and it spreads the pain across everybody in the country. So Bob is absolutely right. Any form of income tax is not going to cut the bill. It will be, in fact, I will mention it again. Any form of income tax, flat tax or whatever, you can rename it as the Job Security Act for tax lobbyists in 2017 or 2018 or whatever, year. That's what it is. Job security for tax lobbyists.
Amen. The president's plan is the same thing. It's not legislative language.
Yeah.
The fair tax is up there in legislative language. It has been since 1999, for crying out loud. And hopefully this time around we'll have a seat at the table when the income tax reform finally gets to Congress's front burner. They've been all tied up in knots with this health care thing for the past several weeks, as of this recording date. And I tell you what, I hope our friend Randy Fisher is right, because he's on record as saying that nobody's going to like anybody else's plan, and the fair tax will be the only thing standing at the end of the day. So hopefully that turns out to be the case.
That does make a lot of sense, because we've seen from recent history that Congress and the House of Representatives and the Senate, they can't seem to get anything done there.
Okay, speaking of Congress and the tax code,
yeah,
we have been keeping track here on FAIRtax Power Radio by watching the Congress.gov website of how many proposed changes to the tax code have been introduced into this current Congress, which has been in office since like January. And, of course, again, we're searching on the string Internal Revenue Code within the Congress.gov, and that's the best way we can think of to come up with this. As of a few weeks ago, when we did our last recording session, it was like in 750-something. How many do you think it is now?
Well, I looked at it yesterday as I was researching for today's recordings.
Cheated.
And yesterday, it was 792.
Today, it is 807.
That's
15 changes in one day.
15 proposed
changes. Yes, they all won't make law. We emphasize that. But this is the mindset of the Congress critters. They have got this big, huge monstrosity that nobody understands called the tax code. They can play with it for the benefit of their lobbyists and contributors. We, the people, have no clue what they're doing, and it goes right on through there. That has got to stop, folks, and it will with the fair tax.
And folks, if you'd like some really interesting entertainment, go to the Congress.gov and do a search for just what Bob said for Internal Revenue Code, and come up, and it'll bring up all of the proposed tax changes, all what did you say, 807?
807 of them as of now.
And read the titles of some of them. Some of these things are amazing. What these people want to change. They want to get after their political opponents in the worst way. And they want to do it through the tax code. And it's amazing. Some of these things are just incredible.
Yeah, let me toss a couple of them out at you here. This is H.R. 3476. It says to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to repeal the cover-over of rum excise tax revenue. Now, can you tell me what the cover-over of rum excise tax revenue actually is?
You know what? That's the problem with having mostly attorneys in serving in Congress, because it might mean something to them, but for everybody else, I don't know. I've read. Randy sent one on email a couple days ago, and I wish I had my computer with me right now. But the title was like 5 lines long, and it was how they're going to repeal this. And anyways, some of these bills, they're just it's so obvious they're trying to get after the political opponents. Why have a tax code that, beyond collecting taxes for the government, is a tool to get after your political opponents? We don't need that.
Oh, you're right. Now, this isn't an after your political opponent one, but I got to mention this one too. H.R. 3483, to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to require as a condition of the Earned Income Tax Credit that an individual be allowed to engage in employment in the United States. Now, does that say that right now you are not allowed to be engaged in employment if you want the Earned Income Tax Credit? I don't know. I'd have to research that. That just popped up on our little search here.
Yeah.
But again, that's the kind of stuff that your Congress critters are doing to you behind your back while you're not watching, and they're getting away with it because nobody understands what they're doing and nobody's paying any attention.
And unfortunately, some of these will become law, and they will amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986.
So again, the whole system is corrupt. It has got to be jerked out by the roots and replaced with a fair tax. And I tell you what, let's get on to the subject of the day here before we run out of time. Your crack research department has done some incredible research on a subject that is near and dear to the hearts of us old retired geezers, and that would be Social Security.
That's right. We have mentioned before how the fair tax is going to be a more stable funding source for Social Security. Right now, Social Security is taxed through people who get paychecks.
Yeah, okay? It's a payroll tax imposed on people who are working for a paycheck.
That's right.
And there are a lot of people that make a lot of money that don't work for a paycheck. There are other ways to do that, and they are not contributing to the system.
That's right.
But those people will buy things and will contribute to the system under the fair tax.
And let's not forget evasion, too. Evasion of the tax code is up around 25%. And those people are not contributing to Social Security as well as anything else. So Social Security is on a kind of a flimsy foundation here.
Let me ask you something. What kind of health is the Social Security system in as we speak?
Well, I did some research on this in the past couple of days, and here is a news release from the Social Security Department itself, and it's dated June of 2016. I looked; they don't have this type of news release for this year yet. Maybe it's coming. Maybe it'll come out tomorrow. But it says, Social Security Board of Trustees long-range projection unchanged for trust fund reserve depletion. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. I don't like the word depletion. Okay. The Social Security Board of Trustees today released its annual report on the long-term financial status of Social Security trust funds. Old age and survivors insurance. That's technically what Social Security is. It's called the old age and survivors insurance, and along with that is disability insurance. Those trust funds are projected to become depleted in 2034. That's only 17 years. All right. Now, for me, I plan to last another 17 years.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because to put it in the words of one of our volunteers here, Alan Moss, I realize that I still have a lot of people I need to annoy. So, yes, I'm going to be here another 17 years, and I would like the Social Security to, pay back all the stuff that I paid into it over the years. The disability trust fund will become depleted in 2023. It's
Yikes.
6 years.
That's even closer.
Yeah, this is not good, folks. So now, trust fund, there's been a lot of misinformation about the trust fund, that it doesn't exist anymore. So I looked that up because this was, obviously this is germane to what we're talking about. And I found this. This is also from the Social Security Trust website. The assets of the larger trust fund, the OASI, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance, from which the retirement benefits are paid, were nearly depleted in 1982. No beneficiary was shortchanged because Congress enacted temporary emergency legislation that permitted borrowing from other federal trust funds, and then later enacted legislation to strengthen the OASI trust fund financing. The borrowed amounts were repaid with interest within 4 years. So,
why does that sound like a shell game to me?
Well, it is. It is. I know of one fellow who was the first representative to Congress. He happened to be from New York, but he owns property over by where I live. He was the first CPA that was actually elected to Congress. His name is Joe Diogardi, and he published a book, Unaccountable Congress. And you got to get that book but make sure you've taken your blood pressure medication before you read this book, because Bob is absolutely right. Congress does what amounts to a shell game when it comes to finances. And if any company were to do what Congress does with its funding, its principals would be in jail for a long time.
The CEO would be in jail for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Okay, this one is from Forbes.com from 2015. Social Security is the backbone of retirement planning in the United States. Now get this. Nearly 1/3 of the retirees receive almost all of their income, retirement income, from the system, and nearly 2/3 receive more than half of their retirement income from Social Security. All right. Now, for myself, when I started teaching many years ago, and it was many years ago, I was forced to contribute to the retirement system up in New York State where I lived. It's a good thing they did that, because as a young person, a brand new teacher with a family of 5, I probably would have spent that money foolishly, like on groceries or rent or something.
Huh.
So
you need to learn some spending discipline, sir.
Yeah. So I am fortunate to have a nice retirement right now, and the Social Security helps. If Social Security went away, my wife and I could still make it. Obviously, it wouldn't be as comfortable. Yeah, but there's a lot of people that don't have another retirement system. A lot of people that
don't have a supplemental one like you.
Yeah, that's right. They depend on it. So that's our point here. We need to secure Social Security because its funding right now is woefully inadequate. I mean, they're talking about going broke in 17 years. That's not a comfortable position to be in. And anything that they do with tax reform, that's not going to fix it. No. Let's see. Here's another one. This one goes all the way back to 1997. Okay, a blast from the past, and it's from the National Center for Policy Analysis. All right, Social Security problems accelerating. Remember, this is 1997.
That's 20 years ago.
A recent General Accounting Office report warns that the long-term prospects for Social Security may be even worse than we think. It is already well known that by 2014, current tax revenues will be insufficient to pay benefits. And by 2029, Social Security Trust Fund will be exhausted. Well, they weren't too far off. We got another 5 years out of it, but it's going to be 2034 before it's depleted. And here's, I like this one. But demographic factors are accelerating Social Security's problems. 1, life expectancy is increasing faster than expected. Isn't that too bad, Bob?
Too bad. We're living too long.
Yeah, we're just living way too long for these guys.
Oh, mercy.
And the other one that's right next to it, fertility rate is falling. So we don't have as many babies who are going to be eventually working and providing for us old fogies,
Well, the bottom line is that we need to fix the thing so that Social Security is no longer funded strictly by people who are working for a paycheck, who get this FICA deduction. That's what that is. When you bring home your paycheck and you see this FICA deduction on your paycheck, that is what is being taken away from you to support Social Security. And again, if you don't get a paycheck, if you make your money by investments or you make your money somewhere else somehow, you don't support the system.
Yeah, or if you don't report your earnings.
Or if you don't, if you can get away with that. A lot of self-employed people. I know a couple of folks who are kind of hurting in their retirement years because when they were self-employed in their earlier years, they did not make the required contributions. They never got caught and whatever like that is. So the system is rife with fraud. It's rife with just clear out inefficiency. It is rife with unfairness. I mean, it's not fair that only the people that are working for wages are having to support it for everybody. So that's where the fair tax comes in and makes Social Security much more stable than it is now. It extends the tax base from just those who are working for a paycheck to everyone whose retail spending rises above the poverty level for their household size. And there are no exceptions. There are no loopholes. You can't get around it. It gets the underground economy. Foreign visitors will be contributing to the system. It is just I'm almost going to call it a panacea for fixing Social Security.
It's pretty darn good. We'll call it pretty darn good. How's that? And there's another aspect, too. This FICA, Social Security and Medicare, the most regressive tax we have. People are so concerned about, this tax is regressive or that tax is regressive. That FICA is the most regressive. It hurts the people who can least afford it.
Yeah, have you ever noticed that people who really don't understand the fair tax, but they understand in the back of their minds that a sales tax by its very nature is regressive, and you mention the fair tax to them and mention that it's a consumption tax, that it's a sales tax, and the first thing out of their mouth is, oh, that's a horrible idea because it hurts the poor. And they don't really care that the FICA and the payroll taxes hurt the poor a whole lot worse than the fair tax ever will, because the fair tax has a prebate and those other things don't.
Yep. Bob's absolutely right. There are so many reasons to strengthen the Social Security funding by going to the fair tax. It helps the people who most need it, and it's going to secure funding for Social Security for many, many years to come.
Yeah, and it's not some government bureaucrat that's going to determine how much money goes into the Social Security system. It is written into the bill.
Yeah.
A certain percentage, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but there is a certain...
Right around 35% of the proceeds of the fair tax, something like that.
Yeah, a set percentage of what comes in under the fair tax is earmarked for Social Security and can't be messed with. Yeah. And ditto for Medicare on that side of the house as well.
Yep. So... it's a much better way. Okay, now to drive home the point that we don't have a good situation right now, here's another one. This is, let's see, who did I get this from? I can't find it. I got it from a website here, and anyway, Social Security facing major problems as it turns 80. Well, again, this is 2 years ago. As Social Security approaches its 80th birthday Friday, this was in August of 2015. So just shy of 2 years ago, the federal government's largest benefit program stands as a pivotal point in its history. Relatively modest changes to taxes and benefits. Oh, wait a minute. What was that?
They're going to monkey with your benefits.
Yeah. Relatively modest changes to taxes and benefits could still save it for generations. So now they're talking about maybe raising retirement age. We've heard these discussions. Raising the tax, it's 6.2% from the employee and 6.2% from the employer.
Yeah, we've heard of means testing it too, which means they'll hit your payroll. They'll take your money, but they won't give it back to you in your older age now.
So now they're talking about we've got such a problem with Social Security that they want to mess around with benefits and taxes. So, at least they're thinking about it, but they're still thinking along the archaic system of the income tax.
You know what really burns me up, though? In political season, you'll hear political ads and somebody basically saying, if you vote for my opponent, he wants to destroy the current Social Security system. While everyone this is a nonpartisan issue now. Folks on both sides of the aisle have been destroying the Social Security system for a long time, and it's just always not, well, I'm not doing it, but he is, But they're all doing it, and we need to get rid of the entire system and put it under the fair tax.
Yeah, Bob is right. The people on both sides of the aisle are responsible for this mess because they have perpetuated the income tax. No matter how many problems we have with the IRS. In the last episode, we documented one of the worst cases of IRS abuse we've ever heard of. Problems with the IRS, problems with fraud. People get their identity stolen. There's all these problems and so forth. And yet, what do in Congress? They perpetuate the system. We've got a 19th century income tax system trying to deal with a 21st century America.
They perpetuate the system and blame it on the other guy. And both sides do it.
Yep.
And we let them get away with it, for crying out loud. There is a better way, folks. We have got to replace the income tax and the payroll taxes that support Social Security and Medicare. We need to replace all that stuff with the fair tax. It's fair. It's simple. You pay it at the cash register when you buy stuff. The government no longer has its nose in your financial business, and it extends the tax base to everybody who buys things. Puts it on a much more stable footing. So if you're concerned about Social Security, whether you're retired like we are, halfway through your working career, or just starting out, it is something that everybody, regardless of your affiliation politically, should be worried about because it's money in your pocket. And we need to fix it so it stays solvent. And the best way to do that is fair tax.
Yep, that's right. And just to drive that point home, now if you are a member of the Americans for Fair Taxation, AFFT, and you can do that by going to fairtax.org and becoming a member. You can contribute. We really hope you contribute if you can, but you can also just sign up for the information, the newsletters and so forth. Well, every once in a while they send out a Fair Tax Friday, of course, every Friday, and it has some kind of a report. They have a chairman's report. They usually have an article written by somebody else. But in between, they'll send out these other articles about why you should support the fair tax. And this one was sent out a week or so ago. Save Social Security and Medicare. That's the title. Dear friend, financial sustainability of Social Security and Medicare is the goal of both Democrats and Republicans in Congress, and the fair tax is the best way to achieve that goal. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I've underlined some salient points here. According to economist Stephen Enton of the Tax Foundation, under the current income/payroll tax system, fully funding Social Security benefits and balancing the trust fund, Social Security payroll taxes would have to increase by a whopping 38%.
Wow.
Yeah, from 12.4 to 17%. Funding Medicare would, make it even higher because Medicare is, I believe, 1.45% of your income. So it would have to increase from 12.4 to 17 in order to secure the Social Security Trust Fund. And again, these are because of the previous reports. We've got people living longer and therefore drawing more from Social Security, and we've got a birth rate that's declining, so you're getting fewer people that are growing up and going into the workforce, all right? So if you're going to depend on payroll deductions for Social Security, you're going to continue and exacerbate the problem. So why do they continue and exacerbate the problem? Hey, Congress, wake up. There is a better way. Now, this goes on. The burden of funding Social Security falls on fewer and fewer workers. Yeah, that's our point. Plus, you have, you got people who are getting W-2s and getting a regular paycheck. As we already mentioned, they're the ones that are paying for it, as opposed to people who make investments or people who evade the fair tax. I mean, the income tax altogether. Evasion, remember, is a huge, huge problem. So all these problems are involved with funding Social Security. The fair tax funds Social Security and Medicare not through payroll deductions, but through revenues generated by a national retail sales tax. Imagine everyone living in America or visiting our country would pay for our Social Security and Medicare every time they purchase something. No longer will this burden be carried by fewer and fewer wage earners. So
the evaders start paying under the fair tax. The
Yeah.
underground economy starts paying for Social Security under the fair tax.
Yeah.
Foreign visitors start paying for Social Security under the fair tax.
I love it.
What's wrong with that picture?
Yeah, and so you are now more knowledgeable about the problems with Social Security than apparently most of the people in Congress. At least that's the way it acts, because they ignore this problem. They just perpetuate this archaic system, like there's nothing else that can be done. We know the solution. So you have to get after your Congress people. You have to contact, if your congressman man or woman is a co-sponsor of the fair tax, please let them know, let's spit it out here, Ron. Thank them, call them up and thank them and encourage them to promote it with their fellow Congress people. If your congressman or woman is not a co-sponsor of H.R. 25 or in the Senate S18, then you need to find out why. Why is my congressman not supportive of this bill? It will fix so many problems, including Social Security. And it doesn't make any difference, like Bob said, whether you're retired or you're halfway to retirement or you're just starting out. This is going to be a big deal for you eventually. So you need to get after it. So we need you to contact Congress.
Wouldn't you love to go to a town hall meeting and just ask the guy, excuse me, what is it about the income tax and the IRS that you're so enamored with?
Yeah, that's right. No,
I tell you what, we're about out of time here on this episode of FAIRtax Power Radio. So before we run completely out, let me give everybody our email address. We do encourage people to write to us. TheFairtaxGuys@gmail.com is our email address. We do look at that. We will take suggestions and comments and questions over that. And also, we're on Facebook. You can like the FAIRtax Guys on Facebook. Leave us a comment. We'll talk about you there, too.
And keep track of our Facebook, because we're going to do another Facebook Live here before too long.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we kind of took a summer hiatus here, but hopefully we'll get back at it before too much
been busy.
longer. So, again, if you are not a member, this is critical. If you are not a member of the Americans for Fair Taxation, that's the national grassroots organization, you need to go to fairtax.org and check that out, bigsolution.org and check that out. And also, it helps to get involved in the Fair Tax organization at your state level.
That's right.
In Florida, we're lucky. We've got a really robust state-level Fair Tax group here. And if you're in a state that doesn't have one and you need help starting it, we may be able to put you in touch with some folks who can help you out there.
That's right. So you can find out what's going on in your state by first going to fairtax.org, and then from there you can find out what's going on in your state and contact people locally. Be part of the solution, folks. Be proactive. Get involved.
Oh, well said, Mr. President. I can say that because you just got elected president of the Florida Fair Tax Educational Association.
Yes, and it's been an education so far.
It has, and we'll get there. All right. You got about a minute left. You got to plug your wife's webinar.
Oh yeah, the webinar. That's generally the fourth Thursday of every month. We're gonna change up things in the webinar a little bit. The last few episodes have been a little different, and we're gonna try to get some interviews in there. All right, so the guys in Orlando, Larry and Mark, they do a fantastic job, and we're going to work with them and try to strengthen the webinar and keep it going. And so that's another good way, because it's at your computer at 8 p.m. on that Thursday. You have to register by going to fairtax.org/webinar, fairtax.org/webinar, and you register for it, and then it sends you a link. In a few minutes before 8, you click the link, and there you are. And it's live, and it's interactive. All right. Let's see some of the great changes that are going to come up.
And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Again, if you are on Social Security or you want to see it saved, be sure your Congress people know that you want them to pass the fair tax. Again, the FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com. And again, I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
Reminding you that the fair tax is America's big solution, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Fair tax is coming. Don't stand in the